at you with another Hero Siege 2 video. As of right now, Season 2 is expected to start January 12th of next year, and I could not be more excited. The level of detail and quality coming in Season 2 is far beyond anything that I expected, and it really shows that PAS is listening to the player base and they care about their game and its players. I spent the last week or so in closed beta absorbing as much information as I can, and in today's video we're going to be going through some new content, items, quality of life changes, game balancing, some rework systems and mechanics, and we're going to briefly talk about itemization as well as the class buffs and nerfs. There's a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to leave that for another video, but we will briefly go through some of those changes. If you enjoy Hero Siege 2 content, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I will be uploading as much content as I can during the beta. Without further ado, let's get into it. Starting in Nightmare Act 1, you are going to start seeing some new quests pop up. I won't go into a bunch of specifics on how these quests work, but I do recommend that you pick them up early, as they can reward A and S tier Satanics. You can get runes from them, you can get high runes from them. They're very, very good early, and be sure to pick those up. If you guys remember in Hero Siege 1, there was a Soulforge ring. That is actually back now, which means Or's quest line is back. This consists of a bunch of daily quests, so make sure you hop on this one early too, because you want to get that one done as quick as you can. As a side note, quest items are now suctioned whenever you pick one, right? So you can pick up one, and everything else around it will also be picked up as like a little extra quality of life. Perhaps the biggest and most controversial gameplay change in Hero Siege 2 to date is the ability to attack and cast while moving. Coming into Season 2, you are going to have that ability once again, due to it being just a very highly requested feature that it was not initially adopted into Hero Siege 1, but due to popular demand, hundreds and hundreds of posts and Discord blowing up, it's back once again, kinda. For casters, it is a 50% movement speed debuff if you cast while moving. For melee, it's a 25% movement speed debuff if you attack while moving. Honestly, you're hardly going to notice it once you have some movement speed items on, and you're more than likely going to be using teleport late game, so it becomes more of a nice feature than a gameplay requirement for in-game casters. They also slightly increase the base movement speed for cast speed, movement speed, and landing recovery time for jumping. You're 1000% going to feel this early games as soon as level 1. You're going to literally load into the game at level 1, and it's going to feel infinitely better. Talking about jumping, they also made jumping feel a lot less punishing, because you can now freely jump around walls or towards walls without being slowed by objects. If you play with a controller or a gamepad, if you go into options and controls, you're going to see on the far right side that there's some new options for controller users. There is the ability to turn on auto aim for specific skill bindings. So if you want to auto target the closest enemy, you could turn auto aim on that skill, and it would auto target that enemy for you. If it is turned off and you move your right thumbstick, that's what's going to allow you to aim that skill. Another really nice change is that zone entrances, dungeons, waypoints, quest NPCs, things that are on your map that, you know, before you could miss a zone or you could miss a waypoint and be literally right next to it, and it would drive everybody insane. They've changed that. They made it so that you can be much farther away from those different locations and be able to see them on your minimap. They'll fully reveal themselves at a farther distance. You can also now scale enemy player objects and shrines, portals, dungeons, all of that stuff in the options menu, so that you can make the loot much bigger. You can make it up to 1 to 2 times bigger than it currently is. The equip map now has a bunch of different darkening settings, right? It has a darkening background that you can use, as well as they've added 3 new colorblind options, which is amazing. I am colorblind. I'm monochromatic colorblind, so this has helped me tremendously. As well as there's skill opacity for yourself, for your skills. You can make you could not see your skills basically if you really want to, as well as your party. You can turn your entire party's skills down so that all you see is yours. We can stack runes now! Crafting materials such as gems, runes, keys are now stackable up to 999. An overly in-depth loot filter has also been added to the game. You can check any type of item, its tier, and each rarity within its tier. You can also export your loot filter and share it with your friends, or you can yoink one from content creators because you're lazy as shit. A couple side mentions. This is what the player cabin looks like now. You do have training dummies, the mailbox, the waypoint is all here in the player cabin. Gold is now set to 999 million, and the market gold selling cap has been removed. When creating a game in Hell, you're going to see that these sub difficulties have increased across the board. What Hell 5 is now for you in Season 1 is about Hell 3 in Season 2, with Hell 5 now scaling up to 1700% increase to monster life, but it's also going to give us 800% magifying. Act bosses have been buffed across the board. I honestly didn't really notice a difference, but if you're newer to the game, or if you go into a boss fight and you're not really ready for that sub difficulty yet, you might be in for some trouble. Eternal Battlefield spawn chance has increased from 8% to 14%, as well as Shadow Realm spawn chance has increased from 4% to 10%. These are double to more than double the chance of finding both Eternal Battlefields and Shadow Realms. I see them very often. They're much more common now, so if you're going for the Shadow Realm blasting strategy, where you just try and find as many Shadow Realms as you can as quickly as possible, or as many Eternal Battlefields as you can as quickly as possible, this is definitely a viable strat, and it's going to make you even more currency because this cube got double the chance. Did you enjoy having 400% increased faster cast rate in Season 1? Good, because now you can have 500% increased faster cast rate. Oh, and by the way, they nerfed Magic Find on Enigma, but it's all good because they increased the teleport range. Another big change is hero level experience, and I'm not exactly sure how this changed because I don't understand what they're trying to say in the patch note. I will read it to you here. It says hero level experience required, raised to start from what level 100 requires. So I think what that means is that they took all the experience that you gain between hero level 1 and hero level 100, and they've split it right over the whole 100 levels, instead of it being like a smaller amount of experience between 1 and 30, and then it ramps up a little bit from 30 to 60, and then it ramps up more from 60 to 80, and then it ramps up even more from 80 to 100. You know what I mean? It's just consistent all the way through, because I've noticed when I am leveling that I'm only like, I think here level 30 or 40, and I feel like I should be much higher than where I currently am. A new feature coming in Season 2 is skill specializations. These unlock at level 100, and they offer an additional bonus to a skill of your choice. Generally, you're going to see people take their main damaging skill as their specialization because it gives it more damage. But there are some specialties that give buffs instead of more damage. For example, Viking's Battle Agility will give you 20% additional movement speed. So if you're in Hell 5 and you're already blasting super fast, you don't need the extra damage, you might as well swap it out and take additional movement speed or a different buff. You can also change these specializations anytime just by respecing your character.
One of my absolute favorite mechanics in Hero Siege is making a return in Season 2. Chaos Towers are back in their old form, allowing you to kill King Rakul after killing 10 Chaos Towers. Now, if you're not sure what a Chaos Tower is, they're basically a tower that you can find out in the world. You go inside of them, there's 10 floors of that Chaos Tower that you complete. Once you finish that, you will need to go find 10 full Chaos Towers for a total of 100 floors to be able to go fight King Rakul. They've added a ton of new levels, new monsters, there's a lot of density, and they're super fun.
If you happen to run into an unstable rift, you're going to notice that they've been dramatically changed. They're now an unstable version of the zone that you were in before you clicked on the unstable rift. So if you're in Pumpkin Patch and you find an unstable rift and you click on it, you're going to go into an unstable version of Pumpkin Patch. These zones are really fun, guys. They're really fun. They make me feel like I'm in the Upside Down. They have increased density, they have more champions, more ancients, 50% increased experience for monster kills, as well as 200% extra magic line applied to those kills. Enemies are also a higher level and they're faster than normal. Like I said, they come at you from all different directions, and it really makes you feel like I'm in the Upside Down. There's also a higher spawn chance for them, the higher the difficulty you go, and the higher in sub difficulty that you go. Unstable rifts can drop a new material called Unstable Dust, which can be merged into a random tier dust. So normal will drop lessers, Nightmare will drop just a regular unstable dust, and Hell will drop a greater unstable dust. Satanic zones got completely reworked. They will now give random buffs and debuffs for that area for the hour that it's available. And some of these buffs will range from increased loot to increased damage to increased chances for heroics and angelics to increased attack and cast speed. They're really cool. The debuffs will be anything from decreased life to your overall decreased resistances or decreased resistance to darkness, decreased light radius, that sort of thing. They are going to be adding some more buffs and debuffs, but those are the main ones that we've seen so far. Satanic zones are also extremely visible on the map now. There's this looming cloud storm thing going on over the zone. It looks really cool, but you're going to be able to find it very, very easily. There's a lot of the dungeons that were not satanic dungeons for whatever reason. They've gone through and fixed those. There were still a couple in the closed beta that weren't working, but they have been fixed so far. So that's all good news. Satanic zones are super, super fun. You don't want to miss out on them. They're cracked, boys. They're absolutely cracked. As far as dungeons go, Temple Trapdoor and its challenge have been added back into the game, as well as dungeons pack size has been increased by 1. As far as challenge dungeons go, the chest at the end will now drop 3 times a boss kill with 1400% magic find instead of it being 1 boss kill with 800 magic find. That's a big difference. That's a very, very nice change. Another really insane change is these challenge dungeons. At the very end, you will always have a chest, right? Now it will always drop a relic, so you're going to guarantee a relic at the end of every challenge dungeon. This is huge, especially if you run certain zones like the satanic zones with the extra loot. You're going to get a lot of keys, allowing yourself to go through a lot of these dungeons. If you like to do bossing in Hero Siege, this is going to be the season for you. Uber Damien has been beefed up. He does more damage, he has more life, he hurts. He also has a new aura. It's called Presence Aura that gives you a minus 75% res debuff. So that's a resistance penalty that you're gonna have to overcome to fight Uber Damien. There's the flip side of this though. He has 1500% magic find base whenever you kill him. It's a lot of just base magic find, as well as he drops 4 brand new items that are locked behind just him. You cannot get them anywhere else in the game. They are not global drops. These items are Soul Flaming Marchers, Sash of Eternal Hatred, Stoneblade of Corruption, and Terrestrial's Fall. We'll talk about these items in just a second. Now, the drop rates for these items are going to be based off of what difficulty you're doing Uber Damien on. So at Hell 1, it's 15%. At Hell 2, it's 30%. Hell 3 is 50%. Hell 4 is 75%. And Hell 5 is a 100% chance that you're going to get one of these 4 new items. These items, you'll see they have red text all over them. Those are random rolled mods. These items have the blue affixes that are on these items will always be there, but those red ones can change every single time. They can be attack ones, they can be caster ones, and they can be tank affixes that you can roll on this. They can also double roll. So for example, I have a pair of Soulflame Marchers that have like 54% faster cast rate on them, as well as I have a belt that has like another 50% faster cast rate on it. You can get things like cooldown reduction. You can get there's so much that you can get on these. They're absolutely insane. The chest, the fact that you can get a +2, you can get another double roll or triple roll of plus skills. You can literally get like +12 on boots and +12 on a chest. It's absolutely insane. It's extremely rare. You'd be lucky if there's one in the whole season, but it can happen, right? So it's insane to think that that chest also has 5 sockets on it. These items are absolutely wild. If you like bossing, this is the league for you. Lower end runes have received a reduced drop rate, which is more than okay. As we get into later game, we really don't need to see them for anything anyway. And many of the high runes have received some pretty big changes. I'll list these on the screen now, as well as a few other important lines in the patch notes that we really need to discuss. The first one being that gems now give 8, 24, 48, 128, 256, and 512 additive damage and additive spell damage. Yes, additive spell damage is back, as well as a lot of items you can actually roll with additive skill damage on those items now. They've also gone through a lot of Satanics and added sockets to many of them. Not all of them, but there's a pretty good amount of them that I've noticed have, 1, 2, 3 sockets on them that didn't have them before. Another really important change in these items, just to keep in mind, we'll talk about this more in itemization, but they've added flat spell vamp and mana vamp to items, which is a way for spellcasters to leech life and mana. Another extremely important change going into Season 2 is the ability to prospect runes. And doing this will allow you to change the tier of that rune down by 1. So if you were to drop, say, a Z, you've effectively dropped 1 of any rune in the game, because you can prospect that Z down to a Drax, and then down to a Jaw, and then down to, right? You can go all the way down to an L rune if you really want to. This section has way too much information for me to sum up quickly. I will be making another video going through itemization a bit more in depth if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, I will be going through the need to know information today. They did give us a little bit of information for drop rates. The health sub difficulties now slightly increase your chances of getting drops from boss kills, so that's really good. We want boss killing. Increase the rate of dropped gems, plus the sub difficulties now have a chance to drop perfect gems, and this is dependent on what difficulty of hell you're in. So hell 1's going to have a lower chance of dropping these perfect gems than hell 5 would. Traveling merchant prices are down by 33%, and the black market prices are down by 33%. That's really nice, especially for SSF. They've nerfed the rune drop rate from 20% to 8%. This really doesn't affect us, right? Because if you drop a Jaw rune, you've effectively dropped a rune, right? They've lowered the chance of your bricking a loaded dice from 50% to 38%. Here is a list of all the new Satanic potions in the game, as well as all of the new heroics and rune words that were added in the game. Again, I will be making a separate video going over all of these items, their stats, details about them, what builds I think they're going to work for, kind of an in-depth about itemization just overall. So again, keep a lookout for that within the next couple of days. As you can see, they've also made some massive itemization changes. They fixed rolling rune words on an item now, keeping the pre-rolled stat on there. So if you got, +4 on a weapon and you rolled 4 sockets on it, sweet, now you can make a spell blade that has, an additional +4 on it, as an example, or a divinity on a flail. If you got a +4 flail, right, and you rolled 4 sockets, now you can make a +8 divinity. Common weapons are either caster or attacker and can roll a wider variety of stat themed related stats, like attack damage percentage, magic skill damage percentage, and cooldown reduction. So white items, you'll be just going through normal in the very first zone, and you can drop an item that has cooldown reduction on it or magic skill damage, right? That's really nice. This one's insane. Common helmets can now roll up to +6 to singular skills chosen from a random class in the skill pool. So say you're playing a Viking, for example, and you're playing a Whirlwind. You can drop a helmet that has +6 to Whirlwind, and then you could roll 3 sockets on it, and you can make the new Legionnaire helmet, and that helm would now have a +12 on it. Right, +12 to be a +6 with a +12 to Whirlwind. That's insane. Common weapons can now roll attack, strike, and cast proc modifiers. The two-handed swords, axes, maces, chainsaws have an AoE attack by default. Can't hit multiple targets. You'll see that in the bottom text on a weapon, on these two-handers. You'll see attacks at multiple enemies, because again, a lot of the time they hit much slower, so they gave them melee splash to compensate for that. It's a really nice change. Added sockets to a Satanics across the board. We've kind of already talked about that. We've also talked about gems giving additive damage and additive spell damage. It's insane, it's huge. Added flat spell vamp and mana vamp stat to items. We talked about this a little bit. Basically, it's a flat number, so it'll be like +2 or +10 or plus whatever the amount is for vamp. So life vamp is literally each time that spell hits, procs, triggers, every time that spell does damage to an enemy, as many times as it does damage to that enemy, you are going to gain back life based on whatever the number is, the flat number is on that roll. So if it's a +2 life vamp, you're going to gain 2 life every time that spell hits. Initially, this did work with dots. It does not work with dots anymore. It's just too strong. It's just too strong of a stat. The same thing happens with mana vamp. Say you're playing Frozen Orb or Orb of Frost, and you throw your ball into a big pack of enemies. Whenever that ball hits something, you're going to be gaining mana back. Whenever every single one of those projectiles hits an enemy, even one projectile swirls through and it's hitting enemies everywhere, even that one is getting multiple procs. You're gaining a dummy amount of life and mana, right? Buffed all crafted jewels and gems. So if you go into the options in the crafting section, you'll see that there's all the jewels and gems that have all been buffed. The superior white items now roll based on tier of up to 85% enhanced damage or defense. So whenever you had a superior item on the ground, you're going to make your Enigma in your chest. It can now roll up to 85% enhanced defense, as were before. I believe the max was 50%. They made some pretty interesting changes to some pretty iconic items in the game. Enigma had its magic find removed completely, but the teleport range went from 320 pixels to 480 pixels. That's a pretty massive change, especially when you have 400 or 500 faster cast rate. You're zipping around. Interestingly enough, about teleport, they added it to Sight of the Gods, which is absolutely insane, and changed arcane skill damage to magic skill damage. So it's no longer an arcane specific helmet. You can use it for a lot of different builds. I mean, magic is literally, it's elemental, it's everything, right? So that's massive. Bluebell's wand got changed a bit. They went from a B tier to an SS tier. I'm not really too sure how I feel about this. I still feel like maybe a +8 divinity or an Oculus might be better here. It really just depends. So that's something to keep your eye out on for next season. The Oculus, to get a little bit of a nerf, it needed it. That stats kind of lowered a bit, right? And then a few angelic items in here getting some buffs, and Gem King's Guard also getting a buff with, if you put pristine gems in it, it makes it a massive increase in those gem stats. A new addition to Hero Siege 2 and making a return from Hero Siege 1 is the ability to roll weapon augments on your weapon. These augments are pulled per weapon type, so you have melee, ranged, and spells, as well as there's proc effects when attacking, casting, striking, or on kill. And there's 13 weapon abilities or augments per type. So 13 for melee, 13 for range, and 13 for spells. You cannot get a spell proc effect or weapon ability on a melee weapon. Now these augments can be leveled up to level 5 using devil empowered emblems, and both of the god empowered emblems and devil empowered emblems can be crafted in the in-game from mining and prospecting. If you would like more information on weapon abilities or how to craft the new god empowered emblems, I will put a link in the description to a video I made a couple days ago going through all of these new changes. Moving on to class changes, there's been several buffs and nerfs to every single class in the game, as well as new augments to check out. We've been testing these changes in the closed beta and providing a lot of feedback to the dev team. I'm going to post all the class changes in short captures so that you can easily navigate to the ones that you're most interested in and just pause the video. Okay, that's going to wrap up all of the class changes. I will also mention that we are still in closed beta. We are testing a lot of these changes still, but for the most part, and from the feedback that we've been getting from the developers, the class changes that you're seeing now are most likely going to be what goes live in season 2. There might be some minor tweaks in numbers, but for the most part, this is where we're at. Which class are you most excited to try out now, and which class do you think still needs a little bit of love? Feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think. All right, that just about wraps up all the information we have for season 2 today. Again, season 2 is expected to start on January 12th, and I could not be more excited to start grinding. I will make videos for any future updates or patches that we have in the closed beta, as well as I have a bunch of build guides planned. So if you like Hero Siege content, feel free to subscribe so that you know whenever I drop a new video. Do you guys like my current video format? Let me know in the comments below. As always, stay safe, and I